Hi guys, this is Rin. Today I'm here with Mr. Benny Safdie, director, editor, producer, writer, actor. He can do anything in this whole universe. And we're going to talk about his newest movie, The Smashing Machine, coming out at May 15th. So let's start. Okay. Why in 2025 make a movie about a 1990s MMA fighters?
The short answer is because I wanted to. No, really. Dwayne brought my attention to Mark. I love boxing. I love combat sports. And he told me about this documentary about Mark Kerr called The Smashing Machine. And when I watched it, I had made a documentary called Lenny Cook. And it took place in 2001. And the style of the documentary was very similar to the style of the Smashing Machine documentary. And there was something about that era that is very hazy, you know. And I think just now, given everything that's happening with social media and technology, that there is a desire to go back to maybe a time that was a little bit simpler. And it's something we look back on almost with this kind of, you want to go back there, but you don't know how. And so for me, I love fighting. I love but I also wanted to make a very honest movie about what it means to actually be a fighter. Not a movie version, you know. So yes, you can look at the movie and it hits the beats of a sports movie, but it subverts them in a lot of ways. And it's about a human being who happens to be a fighter. What does he eat? What does he have for breakfast? What's his life like? You know, I really wanted to put you into his mind and see the world from his point of view. And that also allowed me to show what life was like back then, you know, when you had less things, you know, but I wanted an audience to be transported back to that period of time through the sound, through the images, and through the clothes. I really wanted it to feel like time travel.
That's true. Like, as a woman, when I see something about fighting, kind of like a little bit against it.
Yeah.
But then, like, I give it a try because, like, I want to know because how The Rock can be The Rock and also not be The Rock.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's mind blowing to me.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. So you wrote, directed, and edited and produced at the same time.
Yes.
What was the hardest part?
It's definitely, it's interesting because all of them, I do think of it as kind of one thing. I don't really segment the process in a lot of ways. So it's just a matter of, it's helpful to be an editor because I know I can shoot more efficiently. And it allows me to direct the actors in a way. And the directing and the producing side of it, I also think comes in hand because it's like, you need to be conscious of the budget. You need to be understanding of those things. You need to move and shake and put things together in a lot of ways. So it's, when I hear all of the things together, I'm like, oh, does sound like a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot, if that makes sense.
Like, as an audience myself, I don't know how to differentiate between, like, how do you define, like, a best director and then best production, you know?
Yes.
It's really hard.
It is, and I think when in this case, I have to be kind of guiding the performances in a very specific way because I have a high opinion of acting. I love acting myself. That's why I like doing it. So I have to guide the actors. I have to set up an environment on set to allow the actors to get to the places that I want them to go. I want the set to look a certain way, so I have to guide that part of it. And so that part of it, I think, is the direction element is kind of the creating of the scene, you know, and creating of the vibe that will then eventually become put on screen. And so, but then the production of it, I think you're right, it's a little bit of how do you differentiate that? Yeah. I don't necessarily know because again, I think that's the same.
So most people think Mr. Dwayne Johnson as an action star. What made you believe that he was right for something so vulnerable?
Well, he wanted to tell the story of Mark. And Mark is a complicated person. And, you know, he's funny, He's strong, he's charismatic, but just even when he opens his mouth, he speaks very well. You don't expect somebody whose living is getting punched in the face to be able to put together such complicated thoughts and emotions. And to me, I thought, oh, well, this already just says so much about who he is, you know, that he can explain why it is that he loves fighting. What is it about taking somebody's will, for example? It's a strange concept, and yet he could verbalize it perfectly, and it almost defies his size. And Dwayne, in particular, is somebody very similar. You know, you look at him and you think, oh, he's going to be this way. And there's such a deep inside to him. Complicated, beautiful, funny, and charming. And I liked playing with that perception, you know?
Yeah, I like the way you put, like, you know, gouging somebody's eyes out, but described in the poetic way.
Yeah,
I was like,
and I use Takanaka,
Yeah.
you know, the guitarist. He's one of the greatest. His music underneath that gives it this sense of kind of fun and triumph. It's what he probably feels when he's doing it, you know. And again, it's like to the point of like it is violent, you know, and you're seeing this kind of graphic. But you're seeing somebody headbutt, there's blood.
Real fighting.
But, and I wanted it to feel real, look real, but you're hearing it from his point of view. And so when you hear him talking about it, it takes on a whole other level of, you know.
I was like, oh, that's like deeper level of
Yes.
fighting. It's just not just fighting.
Yeah.
It's like their life.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was like, so I felt the Smashing Machine was something different from your earlier films. A kind of melancholy, a slowness that wasn't there before. That familiar, like, Safdie intensity, you know?
Yeah.
So what, was that intentional?
Yeah, it was, you know, because it's like, I think that there was a TV show I made before, The Curse. That was something, again, where I was experimenting with a new way to explore, you know, moving through a story. That one, there was an element of not horror, but it was definitely you were uneasy in normal scenes, and I thought this is something interesting to work with, and I wanted to try and tell a story where I slowed things down to a sense where you could be with the people, and I wanted their characters and their feelings to come through, because at the end of the movie, I wanted you to feel his level of emotional rehabilitation, I guess. And so in order to do that, I felt I needed to change some things about how I told the story. And I have the same levers, you know, that I could pull. I could use score, I could edit things in a way, but I definitely knew that I had to kind of take a breath and allow you to be in the world in a different way, you know, and I think that it is also just in the sense of myself wanting to see if other ways of things are possible, you know, just to try something else, and because it's like I feel like it's just a further exploration of the medium, you know.
Yeah. So if you ever intend to make your audience feel anxiety, you succeeded with me. And also, Smashing Machine, I'm like reaction when I watch movie. I was like, oh no. I was like that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no. Like, as a human being, I understand his choices.
Yes.
And then he just lead me through his life. So I think that's the success of what it is.
Yeah, and see, you're very different than him.
Yeah.
You know, just in size. And I think that's, I have wearing a shirt that says radical empathy.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to achieve with the movie. I wanted somebody to watch the film and enter his brain and see the world through his eyes, even if it's the exact opposite of who you are. Yeah. Because I believe that is the way forward in life, you know, given everything that's happening and the further kind of disassociation that people are having, understanding another human being is really, that's it. And with movies, that's what you can do. And if you could tell a story, and then I thought, if I could make these emotions feel as if they are your own, And I think what I find interesting is the movie sticks with you. You know, when you leave the theater, you might think, well, why was that there? Why did I spend this much time in this scene? What is that? You might find a few days later that you have a memory that you think is your own, but it's actually from the movie.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh, wait a second. That feeling resonated inside of me. It's like planting a seed of that. So.
Yeah, that's true. Like, because I work on social media, there's a lot of video of POV, but that it was just like this very small slice of somebody's life, and then people gathers negativity very fast from it. But this one is like you see every angle.
Yeah.
So you cannot hate him, even though he makes some choices that you might question.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I was like, that's a very good part of the movie for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this part gonna be about you.
Okay.
Okay. Your recent film almost always follow men consumed by something like obsession, addiction, self-destruction. Is that close to who you are, or are you drawn to people that you don't fully, engage with?
I would say it's probably people I've seen, and I think that there is what I am drawn to is somebody trying in general, maybe not succeeding, but if you see somebody truly trying, it's like the analogy I've used before is if you say, okay, pick that up, and it's maybe 300-400 pounds, and you can't pick it up. If you aren't actually trying to do it, you might, and then walk away. But if you truly get down and try to pick it up, your neck is gonna go, you're gonna see the strain of somebody actually making the attempt. That's the thing I'm interested in, because you see, the person isn't thinking about, oh, how do I look picking this up? Maybe I might look stupid, maybe I might not. You're not thinking about that. If you're truly trying to achieve something or do something, then that becomes who you are, And I like exploring what makes people do something, and I find there's sometimes in the movie there's a lot of humor in the way that people talk. And I think that even in the intense arguments, they say lines that I find so funny to hear people laugh at, because then 5 seconds later, it's not so funny anymore, but it was funny in the moment, and that's how life works, And I really am interested in putting people in a situation where it feels like that, so.
Yeah, so it's like the main theme is like men struggling.
Yeah.
Would you think that it would be different if you were describing like a woman in that situation?
That's where I think Emily and in the last show I made, Whitney in The Curse, I am interested in that. I'm interested in what that feels like. And I think that for this, it very well could have been that she's in his way. She's stopping him from getting to be the true person he is, which is a story that I think, unfortunately, is what is told. The woman gets in the way of the man. But he gets in his own way.
Yeah.
And she's struggling to pick up whatever he's putting down because she loves him and she wants to be with him, and he's not giving her what she deserves. He's not explaining himself to her. He's not including her in his life. And that is what causes the relationship to fall apart. It's what causes her to be needy, to want more from him because she's not getting it from him. So maybe it comes out in the wrong time. And Emily and I spent a lot of time because I wanted her to be a three-dimensional person. And it's a complicated person, and it's somebody who is maybe not, there's rough edges, but she's real. Yeah. And that's important to me. And I definitely think that, yes, I personally am a man, so it's like I can see those things and I can understand certain parts of it, but I do think in this film, I really did want to try to understand her point of view. And I think that when you leave, you're not blaming her for his faults. It's like you said, he makes decisions that are bad. And the fact that you're able to say that means hopefully it is more equal, because I want to understand the world from everybody's point of view,
Yeah, I feel her in some way when he punched the door and she
Yes,
was like,
yes.
yeah, that's like a very real moment that I think every woman in her life will feel that when you're threatened by like a man
Yes.
and you love him. Mm-hmm. So that's like really real.
And I had that exact conversation with Emily.
Yeah.
She said, "How should I respond when this happens?" And I said, "You should be scared
Yeah.
because yes, he's not hitting you, but he's close.
Yeah, that can be you.
Yeah, and so that fear in her. But then the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to then keep the scene going,
Yeah.
because the scene doesn't end. Like that's something that maybe you asked me earlier about the tension of how I tell a story and whatnot. My instinct would have been end very close to that. Keep it on that level, high. Smashes the door. Maybe there's yelling, and then they would kind of have this massive argument, But they live together.
Yeah.
What are they doing now? It's 11 o'clock in the morning. She has to continue eating breakfast. And then she has to go into the room to get water, to go do these things. And they still have to have that kind of, that elephant in the room is there. And so now, as she's walking, and then even when he goes to reach for her, she pulls away,
Yeah.
all of those little things, and then the camera goes down and sees that. And I wanted that time that you have to spend in that room is what shows that, like, oh yeah, they're still going to get ready. They're still going to go out in that day. It's not like after that they move away and they don't talk to each other,
Yeah, it's real life. It's not like a drama movie
Yeah.
that he's going to get her back. or
Yeah,
things like that.
exactly.
Yeah. You direct, write, edit, and act. Like, you've done all of them, right? So who do you respect most in each field?
Oh, wow.
If you mind dropping some names.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I gotta say Cassavetes, John Cassavetes, because he's an idol of mine in the sense that he also directed and acted and wrote, and I think he also strives to kind of get at a performance that is as real as possible and messy, and the way he moves the camera. I've learned a lot from him, and I think he's one of those people who I think does something very special, in a lot of his movies. And and then I don't know. I'll throw him out there as somebody who kind of encompasses a lot of that. There is the Robert Bresson, the French filmmaker, for how he kind of focuses in on moments that maybe seem small but are very big for characters. So he'll go into a close-up of the hand because it's almost like he's telling you this is important to the person. He uses sound in a way that also envelops the mind of the characters, which I think it's not real, but it is to the people in the movies. So.
How about acting?
Acting, okay. Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman is somebody who I think is one of the most incredible actors. Just because he, again, is always trying to find himself. And every performance I watch of his, I'm just kind of like, I just am drawn in to what he's doing, and I believe everything that happens, and that's incredible. And I think if you look at him and Angelica Houston, when they were together in The Royal Tenenbaums, it speaks to what a performance can do, for a movie.
What would you tell someone in Japan who wants to make films for the world?
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say, focus on, if you're just starting out or just in general, I would just say, focus on the things that matter to you. Tell a story that you feel you can tell with the most accurate emotional sense. Like, what have you done? What is something that you have been through that you want to explore? And do that. And do it in a way to your best of your ability and in real places with real people. And then from there you can grow and you can tell other stories and you could research new things and then find new locations. But it comes from a base of yourself, And look, this is one of the most incredible places in the world, and there's so much beauty and humanity in the littlest and smallest things just on the street when you look outside. So you have an incredible backdrop to tell your stories. So
you and Josh both like independently choose projects that involve Japan. So what is it about this country that pull you both here?
I know, it's so funny because it's like the two of us made almost like opposite equal movies, you know, in a lot of ways, and we're brothers. But the specifically Japan, I think there's just a respect for the specificity of things. You know, if you like a certain kind of music, you want to find everything about that music, and you want to understand it and collect it and surround yourself in it. And I could relate to that feeling because when I like something, I want to find everything about it. I want to understand it. I want to get under the hood. And I feel like that is a lot of Japanese culture from my point of view. You know, there's a respect for everything, you know, from if it's just like even how the water is placed here, you know, everything is a decision. And it's a decision in itself. And you can see it in the things that are there. And and I for some reason Ozu just pops into my head. I love his movies, the humor, and he's another person who allows the humor and the beauty of life to come through. It's kind of the slowness of certain things. Miyazaki, you know, it's like I'm making a movie which is like an adventure movie, and it's the Studio Ghibli movies are some of the most incredible things that I've ever experienced, and I get to share them with my kids. There's a realness to his fantasy that is so beautiful and inspiring that, you know, I love it. I love it here. It's the one place I dream about coming all the time.
Yeah, let your curiosity go wild because there's so many things that you can do here.
Yeah.
And I hope you have the best time.
Oh, thank you. I will.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Of course.
Wonderful.
Pleasure.
I learned a lot.